Here we are. It's these guys.
These guys, the best part of the show is right now.
Right now. Oh, and by the way, the guy that I was telling you who I showed our show to, he loved the intro. He said, you guys need an outro. He said, you guys need a Taylor Swift outro.
Outro, yeah. We'll have to. Okay, I'll go deep through the what do they call them? Deep tracks, and I'll pick out a winner.
Yeah. Yes. Let's figure out what we can do there. My son Zach, he's a big Swiftie as well, so we can see if whatever we choose he says good or not. He loves style for the intro.
Yeah. Okay. Well, maybe he should pick the outro.
That's a good one. I think I'll task him with that.
Unpaid child labor out of that.
Yeah. Hey, Mr. UCLA, we'll put him on an internship here.
Internship. That's what we call child labor. Is internship.
That's it. Internship. We'll put him on an internship, right? We talked about internships on our last show, so it's like that. And hey, if he picks a good song, he will not end our internship program.
Yeah.
I just love that story. That was such a great story.
Yeah. True story.
So Dan, we are on our 5th episode, and I know we always joke about this. We haven't been canceled yet, which is phenomenal. And I think we've done some research and added up the YouTube shorts that we've posted up. We have over 4,000 views, 4,500
incredible
views.
Well, thank you, audience.
Yeah, it's really good.
Yeah.
So we're going to be setting up a channel for Dan. So Dan, you're going to have your channel too, and we'll do some simulcasts, and it's going to be phenomenal. So we're pretty excited.
4,005 views once I get my channel set up.
Let's go. So how has your week been? Anything interesting go down in your neck of the woods?
Yeah, good question. I think I told you. I'd written that Pixar story about a Pixar series that has whiffs of the Oakland A's, but like not like overt references, but subtle enough that if you grew up in the Bay Area or if you had followed the A's for a while, you might start noticing in that show. And I wrote the story going, I don't know if this is going to be a thing. And my editors, it ran and people liked it. And people started watching the show, and Pixar was amused that because there is. I mean, the producers said this show is a nod to the Oakland A's. They said that overtly. It's not They didn't name a character Reggie or Ricky or Vida. They don't have Bash Brothers.
Joe Rudy.
There should have been a Rudy, but anyway, that was a highlight of my weekend. Beyond that, I was sick. So it's kind of a low bar for the highlight of the week was being out of bed.
Get over your sickness. That was something. Another person I was talking to, one of our producers, she said, "Oh wow, that story sounded really cool. I'm now on the edge of my seat. Did it go through or what? What was he hung up on before the show? And did he get it? Pushed through?"
Yeah. What helped it is Pixar has a baseball history that goes happened long before this show. It is built on the lot where the Oakland Seals used to play. The Pixar studios, animation studios, is where Seal Stadium used to be. The Oakland. So Casey Stengel had played there. Billy Martin played there. DiMaggio had played there. The DiMaggio brothers. There is a nod. There was an almost accidental breaking of the color barrier in 1916, where Jimmy Claxton was the first black player to play in a all-whites league, and there's a nod to him that Pixar has a meeting room called the Jimmy Claxton Room. He played one game. The team found out about his black heritage, and he never played again. And it wasn't the majors, so it wasn't doing what Jackie Robinson did. But it was a significant milestone, nonetheless, that I think gets celebrated he's got a whole room, the Jimmy Claxton Room.
That's incredible.
Moreover, I think might have mentioned this, but the producer of Toy Story was a huge A's fan. Jonas Rivera, 2-time Oscar winner. He grew up going to A's games, so he snuck a little Ricky Henderson bobblehead doll in a Toy Story 4.
I'm going to have to look for that.
Yeah.
I'm a huge Toy Story fan.
Okay, Toy Story.
Not seen the Ricky Henderson bobblehead.
And it's a real old school Ricky Henderson bobblehead because he intentionally used the jersey number 35 not the 24 that they retired, but 35 that he wore from 79 to 84.
Love it.
Yeah.
Ricky Henderson. I remember, who was the guy? Dale, not Dale Murphy, but Dwayne Murphy batted right after Ricky, got a gazillion RBIs because Ricky was always on second or third base.
Yeah, it's a good gig.
Yeah. That's incredible.
Yeah.
So the Jimmy Claxton story there, that's pretty interesting, because with the Oakland Seals, you mentioned some really big names used to play on the Seals. So that was a significant thing. And wow, back in 1916, I don't think many of our viewers out here, or even people in general, know that.
I didn't know it. I wouldn't have known it if it wasn't for this room at Pixar. I don't think it's a well-known, well-told tale, but baseball. So if you want to reel the full story, by the way, the greatest thing going in terms of research is you go to Baseball Reference, you look up a player, you can see the stats and all that stuff. But there's the SABR Bio Project, which is often linked off those player pages, where some baseball researcher with SABR style baseball knowledge writes a history of this person. And they don't have them for every player yet, but it's an astonishing, well-sourced educational journey into baseball history if you ever need it. It's a click of a button. It's fabulous. And they've got a great Jimmy Claxton section.
Wow. I love that. I'll have to get that info from you, and we'll post it down in our description here. Wow, SABR. I love that. We'll get Dan Duquette on here one of these days, right? Dan and Mike Gimbel, get all those Red Sox guys from back in the days on.
All right, we should say for the fans, it's SABR is Society of American Baseball Research, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Mike Gimbel.
And the SABR metrics and all that good stuff, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Very cool. So let's stick on this A's thread for a bit. So the A's in a few years are going to be playing in Las Vegas. So I don't know. Have you heard? Are people like excited? I mean, just general A's fans in general. Are they excited about that, or like, what is the temperature? I haven't even thought about that until we start talking A's right now.
Well, the temperature is 109.
It's going to be. I knew that just popped in.
You saw it. I saw you saw it.
Yes.
And I may have underestimated. I think it's building a little bit, right? They've got to go to Sacramento first for at least probably the next 2 seasons.
Couple of years.
Where the temperature is also the same.
And humid.
The question is always, will Vegas embrace an outside team? The Las Vegas Knights were so beloved and so good, so far. There was such a huge smash, but that was it. They belonged to Vegas from the start. And it's been a little different for the Raiders, and I think it'll be a lot different from the A's. And I think also, too, how well are the A's playing, and what does the team look like? What does the roster look like at the time of the move? Because it's the most recent incarnations of the A's have been a team that you've got to want to love, because they're not the anti-Dodgers in terms of they're spending about $12 on payroll. Although, in fairness, they have upped it this offseason. But do you embrace I don't want to say loser, but do you embrace a struggling franchise that comes to your town amid a lot of uproar from the Bay Area that's kind of mad they're leaving? And they're going to have to A's probably do a good job of winning some hearts and minds there with some good publicity. They'll probably need to sign a real face of the franchise type to help establish things. But, Vegas is growing, and the 2 sports teams seem to have no complaints, so it should work. The question is, that's an everyday proposition in the sun at Vegas, dome or no dome. You got to get there, and to 181 home games might be a wearing for fans and players alike.
They might need to incorporate what they do in Toronto, underground passageway to the stadium.
Yeah, right? Do that. That's
from every casino. You just take an underground tram right to the stadium.
Yeah, I mean, I would guess that there's probably some kind of
probably.
Yeah.
Mm.
What are you drinking there, by the way? What do you drink? What's the
So this is the year of health for me. Okay. So this is my It's made by the same people that make kombuchas, right? So I'll drink maybe a kombucha in the afternoon, and I drink this. See, I'm growing brain cells, mushrooms. Now, not psilocybin mushrooms, but just, good mushrooms like lion's mane, et cetera, et cetera. So I definitely love this stuff. If this could be an endorsement, I would love for Alive to sponsor our show, please. This is incredible. And it does taste like root beer.
This was not a setup. But you were ready for that endorsement.
I'll tell you, I'm always ready, man. Hey, anything to further the cause, to get content into people's hands, to get people learning stuff about, Jimmy Claxton.
Yeah.
Toy Story 4, Hidden Ricky Henderson.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, there we are. So baseball, we're talking some A's right now. I looked out the window. It's sunny here in Pasadena. I don't know up in the Bay Area what it's like for you. Okay. And tomorrow is daylight savings time. So every time I think about daylight savings time, I think of spring training. I think of baseball season starting. We kind of touched on it a bit last week, but I'm more curious about you personally. I want to hear about some good spring training stories that you, Professor Dan Brown, has.
Listen up, kids. Class is in session. Spring training 2000 was my first spring training. I got the job covering the San Francisco Giants at spring training. I was 30, so pretty late for a rookie.
What a nice young man.
And that was the first of many times that I learned that the Barry Bonds arrival was a big deal. Just him showing up for spring training was a big deal. I remember Barry was Barry, but he was 30. Well, he was 35 and kind of coming off not so great season. He was about 7 years removed from his previous MVP award, and definitely not holding on. But he was still a star, but he wasn't Barry. And first thing happened was he showed up a little late because he had a contract impasse and he was trying to make a point about the contract. So when he arrived, it was actually attention to it, and we went and found that Barry grumbled something about his contract status. So naturally, we wanted to go to the general manager, Brian Sabian, and get reaction. I say we because it's the pack of Giants beat reporters, and at that point in my life, I was just following the pack. And I just like, where are we going now?
You're in there.
We're going to go find Brian. Okay, and so go to Brian and said, "Hey, Barry came down. Doesn't sound super happy about his contract." And Sabian goes, "Off the record?" Or no, he said on the record. Is like, Barry, we have great faith in our ability to negotiate with Barry, and we look forward to having him around and having him have a big season. He goes, "Off the record?" It's like, first question. First, can we swear on this podcast?
Yes. I know what you were gonna say.
First fucking question. It's like, I've been here for 2 weeks. You guys haven't asked me. I haven't said a word to you guys. And then Barry comes into town and I gotta say something. And so proceeded the most inventive cursing, swearing. He worked F-bombs. He used it as a verb, a noun, an adjective, adverb, whatever. So many F-bombs. And remember, this is like not quite my first day, but he's like berating all of us for not showing him any respect until Barry makes him say jump. So it's clearly off the record. He said off the record, but I had not stopped my tape recorder or anything. So at some point I realized I'm recording this entire tirade. And he's like, "Microphone, you motherfuckers." Brian's he's a great guy. But this was kind of my introduction to him. And he's like,
"This is great.
I don't think it." And so this was before the days of cell phones. So it wasn't like, I could text this to my friends and they'll get a kick out of this. I had to call up and play it to them over the phone. And I'm like, here, and it was like 2 minutes or 3 minutes, but I call it. And then people started calling me and like, yeah, I'll play it. And he played this thing. So it was a couple days later that I was in the front office. They have kind of a front office set up even in their spring training facility. Mm-hmm. And so it was, hey, one of the workers there goes, "Brian heard you got a tape of that thing."
Oh no!
He goes, he's heard you playing it around for people. I'm like, yeah.
Oh, he goes, no.
He goes, he wants to hear it.
Oh,
So I went into his office, and it's like high school buddies were visiting, and I hit play, and they were like howling with laughter at this tirade. But I thought I was going to get, I don't know what was going to happen. I was playing this off the record, and Brian was laughing so hard he had tears down his eyes. So
okay.
that's a favorite spring training memory, was that whole saga.
I was gonna say when they said you got to go talk to Sabian now, you were probably you were probably laying a couple logs in the pants there.
It was an uneasy. He hears you playing it everywhere. I'm like, I can't lie because clearly he knows. I'm like, yeah.
Oh,
Pause because he wants to hear it.
So, that's awesome. What a great story. I love that story. I love that story.
There was another the next spring training. Oh, just really quickly with Barry, that same spring training, he had arrived. So he would sometimes state his goals. And at that point of his life, he said, look, he had 446 career homers, and he was 35 years old. He said, my goal, I've done the math, I figured it out. I want to play long enough to hit 660 home runs and pass my godfather, Willie Mays, and then I'm going to retire. And we all kind of thought, you're 35. If you played 5 more years, you're going to have to average 43 homers a year. There's no way. That's what you're thinking. And then we know what happened after that. 661, 662, 663.
Yeah. All the way up to 700.
Yeah.
That guy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there will be some questions about that. I'm curious about about Barry and,
Yeah.
But real quick on the spring training note. So you're there, your first spring training. So I'm sure you've been to spring training before, not covering the team. What was the difference from not covering the team when you're just there to when you're covering the team? Like, what was the experience like?
Yeah, that's a good question, because my first one, I didn't know the difference. I had not covered a full season yet, so I didn't know kind of the access. But it's also a question of era, because I think that was kind of the last gasp where spring training wasn't a super corporate environment. Have you been there? And have you been there? When was your first year?
Dude, the first year I went was in the late 90s. The last time I went was 2004 in Arizona.
You know what I'm talking about. It used to be this people think, oh, it's a leisurely vibe and this relaxed atmosphere and this all, which was, I mean, it's not that. It was not, guys are not leisurely. They're doing their work, but the fan interest was not what it was. And you could go to a restaurant, all this stuff, and the restaurants were low-key, old town Scottsdale, vintage vibe, old bars, old restaurants. And I blinked 2000. By 2010, when the Giants are winning a World Series, and interest was so rabid, the Giants fans just go to the spring training en masse and became very the restaurants were high-end. Every place was a hot spot. Everything was new. Everything was shiny. Everything was packed. And that went for the games too, where access to players is the journalists, that's our currency. Like, how much time can we get with a player and sit down? And spring training in the early 2000s, it was still that you could probably sit for 20 minutes, 30 minutes with somebody. You could sit in the dugout. You can sit in the bleachers. We would do interviews. They'd finish their hitting. We'd go sit in the bleachers and have a chat. We'd go to the restaurants and we'd bump into those guys. Go to a bar and bump into those guys and chat. And now it's not, there's not that, to me, there's not that much difference between regular season game 41 and spring training games, because it's just, it feels so big time now. And I don't know if your experience echoes that.
No, totally. And even the stadiums too. Mm-hmm. They're now building almost like major league stadiums here, right? The one in Tampa for the Yankees. That thing is pretty incredible. No, I remember, and even like security back then, there really wasn't any. Like, I remember 93. I have a great story for you. So I'm at the Cleveland, when they were called the Indians, facility. So I'm watching the game. There's maybe 500-600 people there. Okay, March 93. And I just start walking around. I end up going down some stairs. I'm in a tunnel. I'm like, where am I going? Next thing I know, I'm on the field. right? And who's standing next to me but Sandy Alomar Jr. And I'm like, whoa. And he goes, hey man, what's up? And I'm like, oh, I was just trying to. He goes, oh yeah, it's confusing here, underground. It's like a maze. And my eyes are big because, see, fun fact for you, Dan.
Yeah,
Sandy Alomar Jr. was the first fantasy baseball player I ever drafted.
That's
in
crazy.
the Pen and Ink League in 1990 or 89. I can't remember if it was 89 or 90.
Yeah.
He was the first player I drafted because I didn't know anything about, drafting and the auction type style draft.
Yeah.
So he was the first name that came out, and I just bought him for like $1.90. And they're like, you bought a catcher for $1.90? Yeah. So there's that story there.
That's amazing. That's a great one. Yeah, there was stuff like that would never happen now in any way, shape, or form. You would never get lost in a tunnel, end up on the field talking to Sandy Alomar. You'd be tased.
No, I would have got tased for sure.
Yeah, we would have got tased. I remember we reporters were allowed on the field at spring training games, the batting practice and all that. But I remember walking that same 2000. The Giants were at Hohokam Park where the Cubs used to play, and a stray ball came by, and I went by and I tossed it back to the coach, and I realized the coach was Billy Williams, Hall of Famer. I'm like, I just played catch with Billy Williams because I threw the ball back to him. And there was another one that was kind of like that where I'm just like, bump into a legend just casually through the course of you. Oh, I know what it was. I blew the punchline, but Giants were playing the Indians back then. The Indians during a game, and I saw a guy in the old school Bob Feller fan. He's got a Feller jersey on, and I realized that's Bob Feller walking through the stands in the Indians game. He was on his way he was doing a formal autograph signing, but he's walking through the stadium in a Feller jersey as Bob Feller, like unnoticed. And I just thought, what a world spring training is. What a universe where I'm living in.
I love that he had his own jersey on. That's like epic. I love it.
It's actually a great disguise if you want to. It can't be him. He would never wear that jersey.
Totally. I mean, I would go. We had some friends that we would do baseball trips in the 90s, right? Mm-hmm. Me, Carrie, we would go on baseball trips, and we would inevitably see retired jerseys, right, of players, of fans with them. And I'd say, oh my God, Willie McCovey's really let himself go. That. But in this case, if I made that joke, oh, look at that Bob Feller there.
Yeah.
He's walking through in spring training. It really was him.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
The pink pony. So I know the pink pony, we touched on this a few episodes back, but the pink pony no longer exists, or does it? I don't,
that one place doesn't exist. The pink pony was the gathering spot for players, scribes, old school, Scottsdale. The new hotspot became Don and Charlie's, which was the restaurant that I think I've lost track because it has had some financial adventures, but that was where you could go in there any night and there would be ball players everywhere because there was a private dining room in the back where they could go and Don and Charlie, the owners there, where they would take care of those guys and make sure they got at least some privacy. But I remember just going into the restaurant and there's Dave Rigetti and Dusty Baker and I saw Bob Uecker in there one night. It was just this. You'd sit down, and it was just old school steakhouse. But that was the hot spot, and it's probably hot spots now that I don't know because I'm too old, and they wouldn't tell me what the hot spots are. But that was the gathering point.
To that point, though, I'll bet you these days, just like we said, it's a bit different from yesteryear. I'll bet you that you wouldn't get that access. I bet these new places have. Just like here in LA, right? It's like, okay, this is where the normal people sit. And then the Hollywood A-listers are all over there. You wouldn't even see them.
Yeah.
So it's probably something like that.
Yeah. And then, nutrition is different for players now. You're not going to see them at
eating a big giant steak.
Yeah, they've got their personal chefs. And there was a story in the San Francisco Chronicle today about how customized everything can be made for all the players and how a lot of them get delivery now. And because they get these delivered, healthy, custom-made meals that might taste like, the Dominican players have a taste of home, and the players from, the Japanese players get something from A Taste of Home because the chefs can do that for them.
That's incredible. Yeah. And we talked a couple of episodes ago about the longevity of a player.
Mm-hmm.
That type of food, not eating garbage or trash out there.
Yeah.
This keeps the longevity going.
Right. And that touches on another part of spring training is back in the days, way back, players would report to spring training to get in shape. That was what they needed to get in shape. And now there's the whole off season, the hitting labs, the pitching labs, the nutrition, you got Driveline, you got all these high tech things that you have. It's not even like an option. If you want to survive in the game today, you've got to find something like that to stay sharp. You don't report on February 15th going, all right, boys, let's do lunges, grab that medicine ball.
Got 30 pounds to lose here.
Yeah.
Oh, that's some good stuff, man. That's some good stuff. Oh, look, we have a fan here. Where is she? Oh, there's the Snout. We have a fan. Yeah, this is Loxy. She's looking for Sugar Ray. Where's Sugar Ray?
Sugar Ray's boycotting this 5th podcast.
Oh, wow. That's Sugar Ray holding up for exactly. I was going to say more guaranteed money. Okay, so that was awesome. Love the stories of spring training. Hopefully, the Giants will do well this year. Maybe the Sacramento A's, the Sacramento River Cats, isn't that what the Giants, right? And UC Davis now, kids from UC Davis can go, less than 25 minutes and see a professional baseball game. Oh, let's go. Shout out to the Aggies. One of these days, I got to get my my UC Davis alumni hat.
Oh, yeah.
You know how many people I run into here in LA and I'm wearing this hat and they're like, oh, and they say like the grad. And I'm like, yes.
That's another bygone hotspot, but
I know. What happened in the grad stays in the grad. Okay. All right. So let's move on to talk some journalism here. And one of the questions, so last week we touched a bit on headlines. This week, I want to touch on stories and story ideas. And I know how it was back when we were in the game, right? Back in the days. I'm curious from you, like how that has changed. I remember, well, and I guess certain desks, like news desk, it's pretty reactionary, right? Unless you're working on maybe the crime desk where you're doing a longer form article. I would think the sports desk, unless you're covering a team where you're just covering the team, it's pretty ABC. But with, features and being able to write features, especially at the Athletic there, how do you come up with these story ideas? Is it purely you? Is it you and an edit? Well, not you, but is it a journalist and an editor? Like how does this all evolve? I think people want to know these things.
This is a good one. Young journalists, listen up. This is the key to everything. This is the key to everything. Because it used to be, for many, when sports writing started, if you were writing for a newspaper in the 20s, you were telling people what happened in the game. They didn't hear it. They didn't see it. They didn't watch it on their phones. They didn't live stream it. They needed to know what happened. So you would kind of recap the scoring. Who got the hit? Where did it go? What does it mean for the standings? What happened in the 3rd inning? What happened in the 4th inning? And it was almost like a lot of the old-time baseball researchers could reconstruct box scores by going through the game stories of the time because it accounted for every batter. Which is insane. Like, who would read that? But I guess you would read it if you didn't,
That's all you had.
If that was you're watching the on your phone with the updated pitch, 2-1 pitch outside ball 3. That was kind of what I'd watch it. So anyway, over the years, as recently as the 60s was kind of when the sports writers started realizing the power of getting quotes and access and writing game stories that would account for what did the manager say about why they made that decision. What did the third baseman say about the throwing error, and how did that come to be? What do they have to say about the umpire? All these things, little insights about understanding the game you just saw, was going inside the locker room and asking Famously, Roger Maris was hounded by the press during his pursuit of Ruth's record in 1961, and it like wore him down. And now that's, that kind of press coverage is almost a daily occurrence. You're being hounded a lot. It's part of the game now, for better or for worse. But the sports writing game has evolved. So the question of story ideas, when you go to a game now, if you recount the action, you're toast. You're irrelevant. You've written something that nobody needs to read because they know it already. It was Peter Gammons who said, the great baseball writer, who said, a game really comes down to 3 plays. Your story could focus on those 3 turning point plays. And I think that's still a pretty good baseline. You don't have to go nuts describing, but talk to the participants in those 3 key plays and find out what happened. What angle did they take on the ball? When did they know they're gonna end up standing up a third? Whatever. Those are interesting. And if it's a controversial play, you could do a whole story on it. Play at the plate. What was the ruling? What the actual rules say? How did the teams see it? You try to bring some illumination to the play everybody's talking about. The Athletic, and with some of these deadlines, you could go so far as to make the game secondary. If you have a good pregame interview with somebody that's been struggling and they talk about the changes they're making to their swing, or some advice they've gotten recently from a teammate or something, you could kind of set the game aside and focus on that, because that's an interesting, illuminating thing. And account for the score, account for the development, but the whole game. And this is where I say, like, listen up. Tell me something I don't know. If you're writing a feature, if you're writing a game story, if you're writing a news story, the whole key is new information, new insight, new observations. Give me something that nobody else can give me. In sports writing, if you're a credentialed reporter, take me where I can't go, and ask the questions that I can't ask on my behalf. And if you can do that, that's everything. If you just write from the press box about what you saw, that's not the game anymore. It's what's happening and why. So can I keep rolling? What are we?
Keep going, man. Keep going.
And another thing. So when that comes to feature ideas, the thing is, don't write the same tired thing that you've read about everybody else. When you write about Steph Curry, don't say, he's one of the greatest 3-point shooters ever. Yeah, we know. So you can drill down to some maybe specific drill he does to practice, or a good luck charm, or like what is it? What does it feel like to be on the zone? And when you take those half court shot, bring me something like specific, hyper specific to that. But don't recount his stats and his shooting, and to have other people say he's a great have 10 people going, he's the best shooter I ever saw. So what? We know it. So, I interviewed Pete Rose a million years ago, and I didn't ask him about the Hall of Fame or the gambling or anything. Because that, especially at that time, it was so well worn. It was just like, hey, who's the toughest pitcher you ever faced? What ballpark did you? Which isn't the most original stuff either, but at least it was about baseball, because Rose had become such a one-note thing. Are you going to get to the Hall of Fame? And, did you gamble on baseball? And he had other material.
I wouldn't have known, right? I would not have known who Pete Rose was, toughest pitcher against him.
Juan Marichal, by the way, is what he said.
Oh, really? High leg kick, hide the ball, right?
Yeah, exactly. And he could throw so many different pitches and put him in so many different spots. That was his answer. Yeah, if you look at the stats, he actually did okay against Marichal, but he said it was actually interesting. Rose had compiled his batting average against all the Hall of Famers he'd ever faced, and said, I hit. I'm making this up. It's like I hit 374 off of Hall of Famers, and started listing who he really torched. He said Marichal and Koufax were the toughest.
Ooh.
So, for example, and then when the reason I looked this up, Bobby Thompson, who hit the shot heard around the world, the 1951 World Series, the Dodgers and Giants play, decide who's going to go to the World Series October 3rd at the Polo Grounds. And Bobby Thompson wins it with, you see the announcer going crazy. And the Giants win the pennant.
Yeah.
So they brought him out to. He came out to what was then Pacific Bell Park in 2001 for the 50th anniversary, and so it was a bunch of us. It was like 10 of us asking Bobby Thompson questions, and he was recounting the home run, So I said, "What's the second best home run you ever hit?" Just to ask him something different. And,
I love it.
And I thought he would, rack his brain. It's like, it was the very next season, 1952. People thought I was a one-hit wonder, that I just going to hit that one home run. It was a fluky kind of thing. He came up in the bottom of the ninth against the Cardinals with the bases loaded, trailing 7-4, and he hit a grand slam to win it 8-7. And that's when I proved to the rest of the league that was not a fluke.
Ice in the veins, baby.
That's what Bobby Thompson do, yo. He may have said that differently.
Yeah,
but
I love that.
It's the whole Robert Frost poem, "The Road Less Traveled."
Yes, I love that poem.
Yeah,
Lanny Lowry. Shout out, Lanny.
Shout out Lanny Lowry, our senior year American Lit teacher at Rancho Cotati.
The Road Less Traveled. And it's interesting. I'm looking at this here. I would say a young journalist, from what you're saying, there's one thing is the why about it, like something that I don't know. Tell the reader, tell the viewer, whatever it is, something I don't know. And I really believe you have to have your eyes open to be able to identify that. And I'm going to give you an example here.
Yeah.
Do you remember San Francisco Giants shortstop, light hitting shortstop, Jose Uribe?
Yes.
Okay? Yes. I can't remember who wrote the article in the Chronicle, but it was an off-season article where the reporter traveled to the Dominican Republic and met up with Jose Uribe to talk to him because he was going to be the starting shortstop, great Gold Glove Award guy. Like he was a phenomenal defensive player. Well, but what Jose Uribe was doing down there was working on his hitting. So he goes, oh, well, very good, because Jose hit like maybe 190. He was around the Mendoza line back then. He was hitting corn.
Wow.
Jose Uribe was hitting kernels of corn.
Wow.
And I still remember this article. I read this article. I thought that was the funniest thing, that he's hitting corn. But then I thought about it. It's pretty damn hard to hit corn. Okay.
Yeah.
So he's literally watching the kernels of corn, pam, pam, pam. That next year, don't quote me on this, but I think he had the best season, his hitting season. I think he was hitting 300 at some point. And people were like, oh my God. But it was because Jose Uribe was hitting corn.
Love that story. It's funny how stories stay with you. I remember it's the same kind of thing, but I remember in the Chronicle reading when I was growing up that and this would never happen now, but players during spring training would play pick up basketball games against each other. And they talked to some of the players about he said Jeffrey Leonard plays NBA defense. They said Brenly was really good. Adley Hammaker had the best jumper. And it was just this insight into this cult. It was like a cultural look at what a clubhouse can be like, and the teammates can go do that. And that I just found it revealing in some way, and like a little endearing, like, oh, Jeffrey Leonard like really plays clampdown defense in pickup games at spring training.
And I'll tell you this, the writer who wrote that story literally thought exactly like you, that, oh, I'm not writing about these guys playing basketball and, oh, wow, it is that cultural thing. It's that whole like camaraderie. Yeah. I love that. I love that kind of stuff. Good. Those are good tips for our young journalists out there. Be creative, eyes open all the time.
Yeah, that was it's the thing about advice is sometimes you give really simple advice, but it's not simple. So Ted Williams always said the best advice he ever got was from Roger Hornsby. He says, get a good pitch to hit. Get a good pitch to hit. Notice that's hitting advice? Like, because to me it means like if it's in the strike zone, give it a rip. But to Ted Williams, who is brilliant, it meant know your strengths, know your weaknesses, know how to work a pitcher, know what you can do with a fastball on the outside of the zone, know what you can do with a fastball at the top of the zone, know No, and then be looking for the one you handle best in a different spot. Like it was simplifying really what was really complex. He wrote a whole book, The Science of Hitting, but his advice was get a good pitch to hit. But that means more than you think it means. So when I said that first spring training, Mark Purdy, who had covered a million things and written a million great things, said his advice to me was work hard and pay attention. I'm like, that's all you got? But work hard means like putting in long days and don't take any shortcuts, and and pay attention means what you mean, like really look deeply at what you're looking at and really notice the little things. And that's where the good stories are, is when you notice something behind the scenes, when you notice two outfielders talking after a misplay, circle back on that. Go chase that down. There you can see, just reading the body language sometimes from players in the field, where there might be something worth checking in on. So yeah, it sounds, I don't tell people work hard and pay attention, but I tell people tell me something I don't know, which is also a little bit more, it's not as simple as it sounds.
Yeah, no, that's gold right there, man. Yeah. I mean, truly, not just for journalism, dude, that works for most all professions out there. Mm-hmm. Actually kind of works for life. Does it not? Like, hey, if you're paying attention in life, you're gonna see certain things.
Yeah.
I love it. Cool. Now, Dan, guess what time it is?
Is it brown time? Is it bag time?
There's a bag that's brown. And last week, I believe we had the first journalism question, right?
Yeah.
It was about headlines, which was quite an entertaining answer there. Okay. Let's see what we have in the brown bag today.
Yeah, bring it.
Let's see. Oops. We had two. We had two stuck together. Yeah. Oh, look at this. A J. J for journalism. Okay, let's see what we got here.
Shake out here.
Okay. How has journalism and reporting changed since you started? That's interesting.
It's a good question, because it's changed. What the thing that's changed everything is time, because time now is now.
Okay.
It's Twitter, it's social media. Somebody breaks a leg. No, not even that. You can step back. Somebody's down on the field. You're gonna tweet something. You're gonna share something. I'm gonna make up a player because I don't want to hurt even a real player. But let's say Joe Schmo is down in the field. He's getting up slowly. Trainers take him to the locker room.
You're like,
now during a televised regular season, right? You can see that already. But for reporters, we see that a lot at the practice field. And in the old days, you would wait, talk to the player, talk to the trainer, like, hey, what was going on there with so and so? What's the status? And the teams have been a little bit vigilant about maybe. But you can start tweeting, and you can whip an entire fan base into a frenzy by saying, if you said Brock Purdy is down on the field, slow to get up, boom, it's gone. It took 2 seconds from the 2 seconds ago to create this probably national level interest in what's going on with Purdy. So the question is, how do you handle situations like that responsibly, but also keep up with the pack? And it's kind of a case by case scenario. But the speed element is, and I don't like it because but then the whole now. The other, I may have used it on this podcast before, but let's say a player in the locker room grumbles about his playing time. You might tweet that right now, then go talk to the manager, and then tweet his response. Where back in the day, you would get one side, then get the other side, and then write it at the same time, so you could add balance and nuance and context and all that stuff. And I think those days are mostly over. You can try your best to juggle the speed element, but I always think readers don't care that much. But you'll see on Twitter, like some of the newsbreakers, like John Heyman or Rosenthal or Jeff Passan and these guys, readers will notice, like, hey, Passon beat you on that, or the basketball was the the Woj bombs because he's always first on everything, and then if he wasn't, readers like they keep score as to who's breaking the news. So it just becomes, if it's your identity is breaking news, if your career is based on being the first to report something, you're gonna go off in a way that didn't exist a long time ago. It just didn't exist. Even if you wanted to, you could sit down at your computer and write as fast as you could, get it to your desk. They would edit it, but that sometimes, for most of our childhood, it was the morning paper. So when I was covering, that was as recently as, there was internet, but there was, if I had been scooped, if I had been beaten, I would find out about it the next morning. Now, if I'm being beaten, I can see it. I can see a guy hammering away at his phone. I'm like, I'm gonna check on Twitter in a second to find out what the heck is going on.
Yeah.
So it's that element has and it's obviously got its perils. Sometimes the first report is incorrect. We saw that with Aaron Judge reporting when he was a free agent. There was initial reports that were incorrect. We've seen it sometimes injury news. We've seen it with all kinds of things. The worst thing is, but then we've also seen how hard that is to retract and how hard it is to set the record straight. And that is definitely the thing that's changed. But I work with Ken Rosenthal. He's very good. He's very fast. He's very reliable. If you can do it, if you can do those three things, you're the king of the world or the queen of the world. So that's the biggest thing.
That's really good. Wow. I didn't even think of that. So technology then has played quite a huge role in what it was for you back in the day and what it is now.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Because now even it might not even be taking the time. Somebody might be live streaming the press conference. Somebody could learn of announced trade from the live stream. So it's just the speed has changed the nature of the game, and also a world in which another bit of technology. When I used to write stories for a newspaper, there it is, world, and we might get an angry email or a happy email or a whatever question, but now we get internal metrics. How many people have clicked on your story? How many people have subscribed to The Athletic because they wanted to read that story? How many people are returning visitors to you? And there are people who, for survival, might write differently. How do you get those clicks? What do you do as a journalist sometimes, knowing what presses people's buttons and what doesn't? Because you could write pretty good public service story, very straightforward way, but I remember I had an editor who there was a Steph Curry thing. I was at a Warriors practice and there was some kind of joke one-liner and my editor put on there, Steph Curry said what? And I'm like, dude, we're not doing that game. We're not. Because no. That's what people click on. That's what people click on. Like, I'd rather they not click if that's what we have to resort to get people to click. But there are lots of sites that survive by doing some variation of those headlines.
Oh, absolutely. So that's why we here at 5000 IQ. Yes, we are making engaging headlines, but they're factual, right? The Dusty Baker one that went, I'm going to say it didn't go viral. It didn't get millions, but it did get a significant amount of people watching. I just wrote the headline was Dusty inspired me, and that was it.
Yeah, okay.
And that's facts.
Yeah.
Super facts. And it's Dusty inspired me, and there's a thumbnail of Dusty.
Yeah.
So pretty, straightforward there.
That's what it wasn't. Britney Spears caught where?
Yeah. Hey, okay. Editors my producers don't be doing that. I know he said it, but
yeah, I mean, it is. We've talked. So it is a, it also does your outlet I had Tim Kawakami was my first boss at the Athletic, and sometimes I would write a story. I take chances. Sometimes I'll do something kind of off the beaten path, and I would occasionally have a story that hit big, and I would occasionally my idea that I thought was super clever would just bomb, and it would get very few clicks. And Tim would say, sometimes he would say that I know the readership wasn't big, but that story was worth it. That made our website better. Keep doing stuff like that. And then sometimes I would write a story that he would say, don't do something like that. That was not a wise choice to write about that topic at this time.
Avoid.
It's a long way of saying, like, having bosses who recognize quality. Oh, I'm unplugged here. That sometimes quality matters too, rather than the click numbers, is really important in journalism. To have somebody who says, like, hey, the numbers aren't good, but that was good journalism. We recognize it. Readers will recognize it. It gives us as an outlet credibility. So don't shy away from that.
Yeah, no, I love it. No, that great answer to that question. Cool. Well, what about you? What do you have? What's the latest project? Everybody was very excited about the Pixar one. What do you got on the docket for this upcoming week?
Well, let's see. What do I have? I talked about the Babe Dahlgren one, right? The guy with the guy who would play did a lot of the early video work, took films. Did I not talk about that?
No, please do.
Well, Babe Dahlgren was the guy. Lou Gehrig replaces Wally Pipp at first base. Lou Gehrig plays for 2,130 consecutive games. When he sits out, Babe Dahlgren goes in. And he became a middling star from I think that was 1936, 37 when he started, and had some good years for the Yankees, had some good years for the Cubs, decent first baseman. And but somewhere along the lines, he got really, really interested in swing mechanics, like in a way that they didn't back then. Like, even they didn't say swing mechanics, but he would DiMaggio, when DiMaggio was up, he would take off his cap. I was going to demonstrate it, but it would probably be bad. He would take off his cap and look through the little eye hole so he could narrow the focus to DiMaggio's swing. He could watch it and study it without, and almost like a camera lens, right?
That's really cool.
And then, hang on, I'm going to hit the cough button. So he would watch DiMaggio, and he watched Williams, and he watched Gehrig, for that matter, and study their swings, what made it great. And he would love talk to hitting. And then when the early film technology started becoming more available, he would take what we now call video of players swinging. And he started realizing what a great teaching tool it was. And he would film hitters swinging, and then he would interview them about what's your approach. What do you think there? Why do you hold your bat as high as you do? And have the greats of the game kind of talk. And he, even in retirement, started doing this more and more. Well, the idea wasn't spreading like wildfire, but Charlie Finley was the owner of the Kansas City A's at the time. They had not moved to Oakland. And he went to the Babe Dahlgren, retired, but has this collection of movies, and he's trying to convince teams this is helpful to help your hitters to maximize them, because they can see and study their swings. So Charlie was getting on an elevator. He goes, "Well, come up on the elevator," and it was the literal elevator pitch. He says, "Here's what I got. I got all these films," and he hired him. He became the first hitting coach to use video in 1964, and the experiment was very short-lived. And then the St. Louis Cardinals hired him. Again, it was short-lived because the camera equipment was so expensive, for one thing. But it wasn't, they don't have a video room. So he'd go to the locker room and hang up Babe Dahlgren, or to the hotel room, when they're on the road, and hang up a sheet and show the 35 millimeter things.
And turn the camera on.
Yeah. So teams would give up fairly quickly, and he had one last shot in 1970. Finley hired him back because Reggie had a big year the year before, but was slumping in 1970. So he brought him on specifically to work with Reggie. Anyway, that was kind of the early fledgling, a hitting coach who used video. And you go, oh, well, that's an incredible. He had this incredible collection of tape. Well, one night a fire started burning in Southern California, and it was raging through the valley. And he got a phone call at 3 a.m, and he grabbed his car keys and grabbed his wife, and they got out, and all that film of DiMaggio and Williams and all the mantle all went up in smoke. And it's this tragic lost legacy of Babe Dahlgren and his, that pioneering film work. Can you imagine now having films of them practicing and them talking about it and studying it and what we could learn about those stars? It was just incredible baseball tragedy.
And it never got digitized since in the 80s or 90s. So, when was the fire? When was the fire?
It was 1980.
Yeah.
So his grandson, Matt Dahlgren, reached out and has started telling me this tale. And he's got a lot of clippings. He's got photos of him. That one of the days he shot DiMaggio filming. His wife was there, Marilyn something. Was it?
Oh yeah, Marilyn. She was pretty famous, right? With the dress
of some note.
Yeah.
Was hanging around, so she's in the background of some of the photos. And he's doing all the research for me. He's got contemporary news clips of Cardinals hire hitting coach who says films may save the day, and it's really incredible. So May 2nd, I can tell your readers when that's gonna our viewers that's gonna run on May 2nd, because that is May 2nd. That is the day Dahlgren replaced Lou Gehrig at first base, and the point is going to be like that's his claim to fame, but it should have been this. It should have been his work in film.
Well, when we get closer to May 2nd or right around there, we're going to really promote this. This is a good one, Dan. I mean, for real, that's the kind of guy that we would want to have on this show to talk to. You know that?
He's amazing. Yeah.
And if he has some footage, that would, he probably has some, right? Or was it all lost? Was it all lost?
It's all lost.
Oh,
it's the equipment. It's just, you're right. If there's like one surviving reel, that would still be
incredible.
Can you imagine?
Right? Yeah. That's crazy. Yeah. For somebody who loves education, it's like a dagger right there.
Yeah, it is a tragedy. So I was telling an editor about this, and I said, I don't know how to kind of play out this fire thing. He goes, no, you tell the thing, and then in the third section, you have a section that begins like, the first smell of smoke came at 3 a.m. Like this ominous. I'm like, yes, because it is a Shakespearean level.
It totally is.
Yeah.
Again, this is the third reference. Lanny would be very proud of you.
Lanny, he didn't teach us Shakespeare. That's Sonnenstein.
That was Sonnenstein, right? Yeah. That was. But Lanny would be proud despite that. All right. Well, Dan, amazing as always. The episode number 5 is now in the books. Have a great week.
Troy, you too. Thank you so much. It's always fun.
I'll see you on the next one in a week from now. And by then, my friend, you will have your YouTube channel. So you are now in the streaming. You're a streamer now. Dan Brown, Professor Dan Brown.
Let's get Sandy Alomar Jr. on there to talk about the time he almost got tased.
I would love to have that guy on. And despite me drafting him first as a catcher, he showed up. He was a very, very powerful. And remember, that was my old name before Advice from Uncle George. That was Troy's Terrific Tattooers, and he certainly was.
That's right. He was the All-Star Game MVP too.
He was. I love that guy. All right, Dan. You take it easy. See you next week.